We really love the look of agate slices, but they can be a little bit pricey, so we thought resin was the way to go. This way we could customize it with color and size and really make it our own.
Yeah, working with resin can be a little intimidating because there's so much out there, but basically they all kind of work the same. There's a resin part and a hardener part, and it's an equal ratio to mix it.
If you follow the instructions, you really should not have any problems at all.
So we got some cups online here. They have measurements, so you know exactly where to pour.
Yeah, you really don't want to reuse the cups that you pour into.
Pour some resin on me. Also, while you're working with your resin, you want to make sure that your bottles are pretty warm. If it's cold, you're gonna get a lot of air bubbles and weird pockets, and we don't want that. Now I'm gonna pour in my hardener here, 3 ounces. And actually I went a little over, so I'm gonna do a little extra. You want it to be as equal as possible.
Mine's perfect. So
Wow,
just
look
gonna...
at you. All right, so you want to follow the instructions on your package. For this one, it says you have to mix it for 2 minutes. And let's get stirring.
Yes. And as you stir, you want to go nice and slowly and scrape the edges. You do not want to over whisk. If you go too fast, you're going to get a lot of air bubbles.
It's time. All right, now the instructions say to pour this into a new cup and to mix it with a craft stick. So that's exactly what we're gonna do. All right, we have a minute on the clock and we're gonna stir again. Again, not whisking, making sure we get the bottom, the sides, mixing all together. So now we want to add some color to our resin here. So we're gonna divide it up into 3 separate cups. We're gonna leave these 2 cups and we're gonna add some alcohol ink. You can use a pigment powder, even acrylic paint, but we like the look of the alcohol ink. And we found a little bit goes a long way, and you can even add more color as you go. We found this awesome agate slice mold online.
Yep.
It was pretty inexpensive, but it does the trick for what we needed. And now we're just gonna start layering in our resin, starting with the outside here.
If you're a beginner, look for a resin that has a longer setting time. This will give you more time to play with it. Ours has about 45 minutes, which gives us a long time just to take our time with it. And I think it makes it a lot easier. Some resin sets in just 5 minutes, which...
Too quick for us.
Too quick, too quick.
And we're just using some spare wooden dowels here, just to kind of Mitch. How's he doing? Just to kind of mix and kind of get a cleaner, nicer look rather than this kind of splotchy dot. Another tip is if you have a lighter at home or our embossing tool, which we're actually gonna emboss these once they're dry, you wanna heat it up just a very tiny little bit to prevent any other air bubbles.
So now we're gonna let these dry for at least 8 hours and they will start to change. They're not gonna look exactly like this. As the time goes on, the alcohol ink starts to spread a little bit more, and we'll just have to wait and see how they look. All right, our resin dried. Let's check them out.
Yes, it looks so awesome.
Yeah, they look great.
Ooh.
Very
so
cool.
pretty.
For each bookend, we're gonna need 2 pieces of wood. We have 4 inches and 4.5. There we go. And I guess we should sand them.
Yeah. You can paint or stain these, but we actually really like the way it looks all natural. We're gonna keep this as it is, but we're just gonna add a little bit of detail with some gold embossing powder to the ends of our bookends here.
Yeah, I think that's gonna give a nice pop.
The next step is to put our pieces of wood together, and for that we're actually using a quick setting wood glue.
While our wood pieces set, we're going to start embossing on the edges of our slices. All right, now we're just gonna add our embossing glue to the sides. You just wanna put a little bit on a paintbrush, and you really don't need a lot. Actually, less is more.
If you've worked with embossing before, you know once you apply your adhesive, you wanna wait a little bit because you wanna allow the glue to get a little tacky before you add your glitter. We don't get to use our embossing tools a lot, so any chance we get to,
Oh my gosh.
we go crazy.
I love embossing. I find it so satisfying. Now we're gonna set the powder with our heat gun.
All right, they're looking super extra. We love them so much,
So
but we
cute.
couldn't stop there. We wanted to add some more embossing bling on the top and bottom ends of our bookends. All right, it's looking super fabulous.
Yes.
Just the way we like our crafts to look. And now we're just going to glue it on. Oh my gosh.
They look great.
They look awesome.
To get started, I have a couple different molds I found that have some really cute earring shapes. You need some measuring cups, stirrers or wooden sticks, droppers, tweezers, gold flakes, resin, alcohol ink, mica powder, and some gloves. The first step is to mix your resin. This is definitely the most important step of the process. It's a 1-to-1 ratio, so I'm pouring 20 milliliters of resin into one cup and 20 milliliters of the hardener into another cup. Next, combine them and use a stirrer or a wooden spoon to mix them. You need to make sure you're stirring a lot. Even when you think you're done, you're not. Keep stirring. Make sure you're scraping the edges and that all of the streaks in the resin are completely gone. A little hack that helps with stirring is to pour the mixed resin into another cup and stir some more. This shows if there are any more streaks left in it, and usually there are. After over 5 minutes of stirring, this looks good to go. It should be smooth like this. Now I'm going to add some mica powder, but because I'll only be using a little of the colored resin, I'm pouring a small amount into a separate cup to stir the powder in. I'm choosing a pretty blue powder to mix in to give it a subtle shimmer to the finish. Be sure to add only a small amount of the powder at a time because it can overpower the resin and its texture. I'm just going to add a little bit more to the mix for a deeper color, and again, make sure you stir very well. I think this color came out perfect and I'm so excited to mix it with the ink. So a cool technique I found people doing online was to pour the alcohol ink directly onto the molds. Usually you can mix the ink with the resin first and then pour, but I found that this technique creates a marble-like effect, and that's kind of what I'm going for. To start, I'm using a sapphire blue and a navy blue and dropping a few dots of each color onto the mold. Every alcohol ink palette should come with a white, and this helps with the settlement of the resin and ink. Add just a few dots of white onto the mold. I'm thinking I want to add a third color to this, so I'm going to drop in another shade of blue to give it some more contrast. Now it's time to pour the resin. I'm using a spoon stirrer to pour it to prevent spilling, and it helps with precision, but this is totally optional. Just try to be as accurate as possible, but you can always wipe any drips with a paper towel. This is coming out so cute, and I have some leftover resin, so I'm going to make one more pair in a different shape. I'm just repeating the same steps with the same color palette, and I love this shape, so I'm actually really excited to see how it comes out. I have to let it sit for about 10 minutes to see if any air bubbles come up. If they do, just use a toothpick and carefully pop them. Resin typically takes about 10 hours to set, so now that we're done with this set of earrings, I'm going to put this away in a closet and cover it with cardboard. I highly recommend doing this to prevent any dust particles from falling onto the resin and ruining it. So for this next set of earrings, I'm just going to be using clear resin. I love the look of gold flakes and flower petals mixed with resin, so that's what I'm going to do for these earrings. First, I'm breaking up the petals into small pieces and adding them directly onto the mold. Next, I'm taking these pretty gold flakes and also breaking them up into really small pieces with a toothpick and some tweezers. Just beware, these flakes are super tedious to work with. They literally stick to everything. Now, just put the flakes onto the mold and pour the clear resin over them. When you pour it, it'll probably move around the flakes and petals, so I'm using a toothpick to rearrange my design. I want to do one last pair, but this time I'm going to use just rose gold flakes. So, just follow the same process as the last pair. Add the small leaf pieces first and top with clear resin. For this pair, I only want the rose gold flakes at the bottom of each earring, so using really small pieces is key. And like before, you can always rearrange once the resin is on. Check for air bubbles, then cover and let dry. I have a feeling these are going to be so cute.
Alright you guys, it's a new day and it's been about 24 hours since I last put the resin in the mold, and I touched them and they definitely feel like they're ready to come out. Keep in mind, it does take about 48 hours for it to completely settle and harden, so just be careful when you're taking them out of the mold. But I did touch them and they definitely seem ready, so let's do it.
Now that I'm demolding them, I am loving how they came out. Okay, now finally, the last step is to add some backs to the earrings. I'm using some jewelry pliers and the tweezers from before and just adding the backs. Honestly, this was always so tedious for me, but the more you do it, I guess the more you get the hang of it. Now these earrings are officially done and I am so excited to try them on. I love how they came out.
I've had this tray for a while, but I wanted to give it a little bit more razzle dazzle. So I'm going to paint the inside with acrylic white paint, add some rose petals, gold leaf, and finish it off with resin to make it food safe. We have our white paint, gonna just shake it up a little bit, use a foam brush, and start painting the inside. Now you want to paint using long, thin strokes and letting it dry in between coats. Personally, I like to go with the grain. I just think it makes it smoother. You don't want to forget the sides. This coat is done. I'm going to let it dry, do a couple more coats just so it's opaque. I'm going to use a large flat brush just to smooth out any texture that the foam brush might have left. So now we're going to add our gold leaf to the bottom of the tray. I'm going to use some decoupage glue and we're going to work in small sections. So we're going to just get some glue right there and then add gold leaf to it, flatten it out some. And it doesn't have to be completely flat, but you want to get a good amount of it flat to the bottom of the tray. A little lift just adds dimension to our tray once the resin is on top of it. And you can just go in different parts of the tray. I decided to do this design because I wanted it to be kind of like organic, just not, okay, this is gold here, this is gold there, but just kind of, you know, freeform. And if you have some gold leaf that's not secured down by the decoupage glue, that's fine because the resin is just gonna go right over it. Now that we've added all of our bling, it is time to add some rose petals. You have to make sure they are completely dry. If not, it'll make the resin act really like wonky and nobody wants that. I'm cutting it a little bit smaller just so I can ensure that it'll lay flat in the resin. I chose rose petals because I love like reusing what I have. I bought them as fresh flowers. They dried and I was tired of making potpourri, honestly, so something different. You can put anything you want and you can cover it with resin. Bottle tops, coins, I mean if you have the money, you can put coins and cover it with resin, stamps, anything that is flat enough that the resin will cover over it. So the choice is yours. I just like roses and gold. Bling, bling. You know how like everyone has like their default design, like, oh, you know what this can use? Bling. Like that is like my go-to for everything. It just makes me so happy on the inside. I think this needs a little bit more gold, so we're going to add some more. Bling, bling, oh. I have all my bling down, all my roses down on the tray. I'm gonna show you guys how to mix resin and we're gonna pour it right on this tray. Follow the instructions on your kit, but this one is a 1-to-1 ratio and you wanna make sure you follow that to a T. So first, we're going to take the hardener and I have my cup already pre-marked. It's super important that you use cups that you don't intend on using again because you won't be able to use it again. Now we're gonna pour our resin on top of the hardener. Once I pour it to the second line, I will begin mixing it for 2 minutes. So you wanna make sure you get the sides and the bottom. After I finish stirring for 2 minutes, I'm going to pour in an additional cup and mix for another minute. You transfer it into another cup because you want to make sure it's thoroughly mixed. Now that you're done mixing, you're going to pour directly onto the tray. You want to just go back and forth. You can use your craft stick to move the resin around. You can also make another batch to fill in any gaps. After about 5 to 10 minutes, you're going to start to see some bubbles form. The instructions say to breathe, not blow on it, but breathe on it like a creep. But I am going to use a heat gun. And you want to just lightly go across. You can alternate between high and low heat. But yes, use a heat gun or your breath, not a blow dryer. But by all means, feel free to be a creep if you don't have a heat gun. Now that I've removed all the air bubbles, you're going to cover your tray with a cardboard box, but in my case, because I am a thrifting upcycler, I have a drawer from a desk. Going to let this cure overnight and you'll have your resin tray. There are so many different ways that you can use this tray. The great thing about resin is that it's food safe, so you can even use it as a dessert tray.